talking about an FLL team I was in last year called Kronos. You're all probably wondering what FLL is in the first place. Well, FLL, the best way to summarize FLL is that it is a robotics program that you can join from 9 to 14. You then form a team of 3 to 10 kids and one coach, 1 to 3 coaches. You can then program a robot and make an invention for the topic of the year. That year, the topic was seniors. Well, now that I've explained FLL a little bit, I can now talk about my team, Kronos. When the group was first started, there were only five of us, memory serves. There was Brennan, who was the oldest of the group. There was GJ, who didn't really talk much, but he had the best ideas. Then there were the 2 Nicks. I didn't really get to know them that well, unfortunately. And then there was me, of course. Well, then we had 3 coaches at the time. Mrs. Nainara, who helped out with the invention. Then we had Mr. Henry, who helped with robotics. Then there was Mrs. Tien, who just helped with everything involving teamwork. Back then, we only met twice a month. Every time we would start with a team building game, and then we would cover programming the robot. Well, after a couple meetings, we got a new member named Justin. And Justin was obsessed with popcorn, always knew how to lighten the mood, and was just generally fun to hang out with. Then, a couple weeks later, we got our final member named Ali. Ali was kind of reserved, but like Justin, he cracked jokes. He wasn't obsessed with popcorn, but he made creepy faces 24/7. Well, that was our team back then. Well, once we had all 7 members, we started actively working on our robot, and we were just working on our robot and making our invention. Since the topic was seniors, we started interviewing seniors on what problems they had. So our 2 most common problems after interviewing, I think, around 5 seniors, was arthritis and falling. When we were discussing the 2, we didn't really think we could come up with something to stop arthritis or help it in any way. It was kind of out of our league. But falling we could do. So one of the senior stories was Brennan's grandparents. Apparently, one of them would fall down in the garden, and the other one couldn't lift them up because they didn't have the strength anymore. So what they did was they would get a big Yellow Pages book, then they'd sit on that. Then they'd get gradually higher and higher and higher until they were sitting on a chair, and then they could stand up. So we thought something around that line would work. So what we came up with was maybe some inflatable chair or one of those office chair type things. Same concept. So we talked about different types of things that would let us get something from the ground up. We talked about inflatables. We talked about hydraulics. We talked about those weird cranky thingies. Don't remember what they're called. And then we talked about a couple other things. Well, then we couldn't decide, so we found an engineer, retired Boeing engineer named Mr. Rogers. When we brought him in, he listened to all our ideas and then pointed out the pros and cons. Then discussed it and decided that the inflatable thing was the only real solution that would work very well. It wouldn't be as expensive as maybe an air pump, and it would be also a lot easier to manufacture on a large scale. So we then started brainstorming ideas on how to do that. And we came up with a trapezoid shape that had handles on the side, grips on the bottom so it wouldn't slip on grass if you were in your garden or the sprinklers turned on, and 3 layers inside so that you would have some stable support instead of lying on a ball. We then went on and started discussing ways to improve it and how to prototype it. We started by getting a car lift thingy that they put under the car to change the tires that was inflatable. We then worked from there and modified it a little bit, and then made our own out of raincoats. We then made one out of a trash bag to see if that would work. It didn't. And then we tried a couple other materials and items. We then went on and worked on that until we had our final prototype. It was our third prototype. I believe it was made out of rubber that they use for raincoats, with rubber grips on the bottom, different type of rubber, like car tires rubber, and then handles on the side were made out of duct tape since we couldn't figure out how to do it, and we made a little hole for an air pump. We then started working on how to present it to judges, and we came up with a skit, and during that skit we said how it worked, we presented it, we showed how it would work, and all that. We then went to a competition, and we won. Surprisingly, we won. It was a miracle. And then we had 3 more weeks to prepare for the statewide championship. So in the preparation, we worked a lot more on teamwork and kind of neglected the invention itself. That cost us. But we still got 2nd place in project. Unfortunately, we only got 1st place in teamwork, which is apparently the hardest achievement to earn, so that was very good. So we then had an after party, and it was awesome. And the team all... to summarize it all, we started with 5 boys, came up with 7, built an invention, worked together, won a competition, and won another trophy at the statewide competition. That was my speech. I hope